In 4 hours, a taxi would come to take me to the airport. My passport sat on the nightstand. I'd picked it up and looked at it more times than I could count. The plane tickets were tucked neatly into my bag. The suitcase had been locked since the night before. And I'd just spent nearly £8,000 on the family holiday I'd poured almost a year of my life into planning. Then the phone buzzed. A message from my daughter. Just 2 lines. "Sorry, Dad. Richard says this trip is family only." I stood frozen, staring at the screen. I read it again, and then once more, because surely there was something I was getting wrong. I was her father. I was the one who paid for the whole trip. I was the one who stayed up until 2 in the morning, night after night, building the itinerary for every single one of them. So what exactly does family only mean? But the real knife was in the line underneath. Richard's parents are already at the airport. And that's when I understood. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't some last-minute decision. They had planned to cut me out from the very beginning, every one of them knew. The only one who didn't was the foolish old man standing in his bedroom with a packed suitcase, waiting for a joy that was never meant for him. That man was me. But that wasn't even the worst part. My hand was still clutching the blue jumper my daughter gave me for my birthday 5 years ago. I'd been planning to wear it to our first dinner in Rome. Instead, I sank down onto the edge of the bed, and the truth sank straight into my chest, cold and heavy. After losing my wife, after 40 years of hard work, after tens of thousands of pounds poured into this family, I wasn't one of them anymore. I was just a wallet, a walking, talking wallet that opened up every time they needed money. My name is Edwin Holloway. I'm 68. Let me take you back into that bedroom. Didsbury, a quiet corner of Manchester where the houses are red brick and everyone keeps their hedges trimmed. I'm a retired contractor, a widower, the kind of man who folds his shirts along the original crease and hums old songs when nobody's listening. I had a pale blue jumper in my hands, soft from years of washing, and I was smoothing the wrinkles out of it because I wanted to look right at the little trattoria my daughter found near the Pantheon. The bag was half packed. The forecast for Rome said clear skies. I'd printed the walking tours and tucked them into the side pocket. I was standing there deciding between my brown leather shoes and my comfortable trainers, and I was happy. Honestly happy. I hadn't felt that light in years. Then the phone buzzed. I saw Bryony's name and I smiled before I even read it. That's just what a father does. I thought it'd be a gate number. Maybe a reminder about where to meet at the airport. Instead, the words rearranged themselves into something my brain couldn't hold. This was going to be a family-only holiday, her husband had decided. I read it once. I read it twice. My thumb just hovered over the glass like if I stared hard enough the letters might change their minds. They didn't. And here's the thing I keep coming back to. I was still holding that jumper, still mid-fold. My hands kept doing the ordinary thing while the rest of me tried to catch up to the cruelty of it. Family only. I was her father. I booked the flights. I spent whole evenings cross-referencing restaurants and train times so the week would be perfect. What does family only even mean when the person you're sending it to is your dad? I sat down on the edge of the bed, next to that open suitcase, and my hands were shaking just a little. I typed back the only word I had left in me. I wrote, "Okay," one word. Have you ever done that answer to gut punch with a single calm word, because anything longer would have cracked you wide open? That's where I was. The disappointment settled into my chest like a wet stone. I looked around the room at all the little evidence of a trip that wasn't happening anymore. The travel-sized bottles lined up on the dresser, the guidebooks bristling with yellow sticky tabs marking churches and ruins we'd meant to see together, a brand new camera, still sealed in its box, bought just for this week. I closed the suitcase slowly. Every clasp clicked in that silent room like a door shutting, one after another. Then I rang the airline, listened to the tinny hold music, and canceled my own seat. The woman on the line was kind. She said she was sorry my plans had changed, and I wondered if she could hear it in my voice. She probably could. I went and sat in the living room surrounded by travel brochures, and the house felt emptier than it had in years. Somewhere outside, a neighbor's dog barked at nothing. I picked up a glossy pamphlet about Roman architecture and set it back down on the side table. A small, pointless gesture. It was all I could manage in the moment I finally understood I'd been carefully, deliberately left behind. I'll be honest with you. Looking back, I don't know why I said okay. I think part of me had been swallowing things my whole life, and swallowing was just the habit. Hold that thought, because the habit was about to break. Evening came and brought the same hollow quiet with it. I drifted through the hours like a ghost. I left my dinner plate unwashed in the sink, which a man like me never does. That packed bag still stood by the bedroom door, taunting me. I had the telly murmuring some news program I wasn't watching, and I kept picking up my phone for no reason, thumbing through nothing, restless. I opened Facebook hoping it might fill the silence. I scrolled past a neighbor's cat photos. A few recipes from the women in my reading group. Some politics I didn't have the stomach for. And then I saw it. My son-in-law's parents, standing in front of the Colosseum, both of them beaming at the camera with that grin tourists get when they found the perfect spot. The caption said it was the start of the best family holiday ever. Posted 2 hours ago. My thumb stopped dead. Maybe it was an old photo, I told myself. Maybe a different trip. My heart started going as I tapped through to see more, and there it was, same place, same light, but 4 people in the frame now. The in-laws, Bryony, and her husband, all clustered around a cafe table near a fountain with wine glasses catching the sun. Bryony's caption thanked the universe for family time in the eternal city. I counted the faces with a finger that had started to tremble. 1, 2, 3, 4. That word family branded itself onto my mind like a hot iron. I put the phone face down. I walked to the kitchen window and looked across at my neighbor's house, where warm light spilled from the windows and a family moved around inside, together. The betrayal came in waves, each one hitting harder than the last. I caught my own reflection in the dark glass, pale, hollow-eyed, and behind it, the glow of their happy photo still burning on the screen. The contrast was so sharp it actually hurt to look at. If you've ever opened an app expecting nothing and found proof that you were the one left out, you know there's a specific kind of cold that runs through you. It isn't loud, it's quiet, and it goes all the way to the bone. I slept almost not at all that night. When the gray morning light finally crept through the curtains, I knew I needed answers. With the time difference, it was already afternoon in Rome, the perfect moment to call. My coffee cup rattled faintly against the saucer as I rehearsed what to say. I took a long breath and dialed. It rang 3 times. 4. Then her voice, bright and breezy. "Hiya, Dad." I could hear the city behind her. Her husband laughing. Traffic. Life going on without me. "I need to understand something," I said, going straight to it. "What's that?" She sounded half distracted, probably eyeing a shop window. "I saw the photos. His mum and dad are right there with you." A pause. A long one. When she spoke again, her voice had shifted into something defensive. "Dad, we can explain all that. You told me it was family only. So what does that make me?" Her tone went cold. "Look, he says you can be a lot, all right? He didn't want you spoiling the holiday. A lot, spoiling it. The man who planned it. The man who paid for every penny of it. His parents are covering themselves," she went on. "They don't need looking after every minute." "I helped you out too," I said quietly. "That was your choice." She cut straight across me. "Don't make us feel guilty for it." I could hear her husband chuckling at something else entirely in the background, completely unaware, and my jaw tightened so hard it ached. "Honestly, Dad," she said, and her voice hardened with every word. "He was right. You need too much attention. You need too much attention." There it is. The sentence that did the real damage. Not a slap, not a shout, 8 ordinary words that took a lifetime of giving and rebranded it as a burden. I've turned that phrase over in my head 1,000 times since. The moment the people you carried decide that carrying them was just you being needy. If you've ever been told you're too much by someone who took everything you had to give, type 1 in the comments right now, because I need to know how many of you are out there. The phone felt like it weighed a stone in my hand. "I see," I said. "Good. We'll talk when we're back." I hung up without saying goodbye, and set the phone down very gently on the table. Then I walked, almost without deciding to, into my small home office, where every wall is covered in family photographs. There I was, teaching Bryony to ride a bike on a wobbly Sunday morning, her graduation, her wedding day, when I walked her down the aisle with tears running freely down my face. My hands curled slowly into fists. And this is where the memories started landing, one after another, because grief opens the filing cabinet whether you want it to or not. I pulled out the bank statements I'd kept out of pure habit. The wedding I'd spent the better part of 40 grand on it, wanting every detail perfect. The student loans I'd quietly cleared when her husband couldn't find work after university. The deposit on their house, £95,000, lifted straight out of my retirement savings, money meant for my own old age. The car payments I took over when the man lost his first job. The credit card bills I settled when they fell behind. The holiday fund I'd been building for years, which had ended up buying their plane tickets to Italy. But it was never only the money. I remembered the things I gave up that don't show on a statement. The fishing weekend with my old mates that I canceled because Bryony needed a babysitter. The widow from my book group who'd asked me to dinner, and I'd said no because my daughter needed help moving house. My own dreams, postponed again and again while I funded theirs. The Sunday lunches, where her husband barely met my eye. The Christmases where I felt like a guest in a family I'd paid to build. The pattern was so obvious now I couldn't believe I'd missed it. I turned the photographs face down, one by one. And standing in that quiet office, I finally understood the difference between being loved and being useful. They didn't want me in their lives. They wanted me to fund their lives. There's a particular loneliness in that realization, not the loneliness of being alone, but the loneliness of discovering that the closeness you treasured was a service you'd been providing. If you've ever felt that, I'm sorry. I truly am. It's one of the heaviest things a person can carry. I opened my laptop and stared at the account both of them had access to. My finger hovered over the trackpad, one click from changing everything, and then I closed it. Not yet. Some decisions need a plan, not an impulse. And then the phone pinged. A banking alert. I almost ignored it. Transaction processed. £892. A restaurant in Rome, 3 hours ago. Their lunch? Bryony had used the card I'd given her years back, the emergency one, while I sat in my kitchen absorbing the news that I was too much. I scrolled. Hotels, boutiques, attractions, all on my card while the in-laws supposedly paid their own way. That decided it. I opened the card settings, found her name in plain black letters, and let my finger rest over remove user. Years of being the soft touch, warred for a second with something new and unfamiliar certainty. The confirmation appeared. Are you sure? This cannot be undone. I pressed yes. Access revoked. And for the first time in years, I felt something like control. It felt foreign. It also felt right. I set the phone down, looked at my own reflection in the dark screen, and for the first time in days I smiled. The next morning I was actually enjoying my coffee when the phone rang aggressively. International number. I let it ring twice before answering. Good morning, Bryony. Dad, what did you do to the card? No, hello. Just demand. I removed your access. Don't give me that. It got declined at lunch in front of his parents. The waiter came back 4 times. It was humiliating. That must have been embarrassing, I said, and took a sip. You can't do that. I need that card. For what? I thought you didn't need me looking after you. Her voice climbed. That's completely different. Is it? A muffled conversation in the background. Then she came back with poison in her tone. You fix this now, or there'll be consequences. What consequences? He and I have been talking. When we're home, we're looking into care homes for you. My mug stopped halfway to my mouth. You're getting on, Dad. You clearly can't manage your money. We'll sell the house to cover it. You don't need all that space anyway. Let that sink in. I cut off their luxury lunch, and the response was, we'll have you declared incapable and sell your home out from under you. And I want to be fair here, even now. I don't think Bryony woke up evil that morning. I think she'd spent so many years with my help simply being there, like running water out of a tap, that she'd genuinely stopped seeing it as a gift. To her, my money was just how the world worked. And when it stopped, the only explanation her mind would accept was that something must be wrong with me. That's not a monster. That's something worse and far more ordinary. A person who rationalized her way into cruelty one comfortable step at a time. But understanding why someone does a thing is not the same as letting them do it. Dad, are you there? Restore the card. I heard everything, I said. Good. So you'll sort it? No. What do you mean, no? I mean no. Enjoy your family holiday. I ended the call and placed the phone face down. My hands stayed perfectly steady. I looked out at my well-kept garden, at the house I'd owned for 28 years, paid off in full, with only my name on the deed, the house they imagined they could sell to tuck me away somewhere convenient. And then I got up, because there was business to handle. I went to the filing cabinet, but it wasn't my own deed I was after. It was the second one. The deed to their house, on Marlowe Avenue with my name, and only my name, on the title. Exactly as it had been since the day I bought it for them. I remembered the conversation 3 years earlier. Just for the mortgage approval, Dad. We'll switch it over once everything settles. They'd been too busy ever since. Always next month. Next year, I found the business card of an estate agent I trusted. A discreet, reliable man named Rashid Okonjo grabbed my keys and drove across Manchester to his office in a beautifully restored Victorian villa. Rashid looked up, surprised and pleased. "Edwin, good to see you. How's retirement? I need to sell the Marlowe Avenue place. Fast." He paused, his experienced eyes catching something in my face. "The one you bought for your daughter. Everything all right?" "Everything's fine. I just need it sold." "What's the market doing?" He turned to his screen with practiced ease. "Strong, actually. A property like that, in that area, 200, maybe 215. I'd paid 148 3 years ago. The figure pleased me." "How fast?" "As soon as possible. Price it to move." "We'll need photos. Staging, maybe. The current occupants are in Italy. I have keys." Rashid was puzzled but professional. We sorted the price, the commission, the timeline. I signed the listing contract with a steady hand. "I'll start marketing today," he said. "In this market, we could have offers within days." We shook hands, and I valued the man's tact, the questions he didn't ask. Walking back to my car, I felt lighter than I had in a long time. I drove home through a city that suddenly looked new to me, classical music on the radio, and at a red light, I watched a young father cross the road with a toddler on his shoulders. I remembered when Bryony was that small, before everything became about what I could provide instead of who I was. That afternoon, an email landed. Property listed successfully, but there was more to do. I searched for a small, family-run removals firm, not a faceless corporate one, and found Declan's Removals, family-run for 12 years, the kind of place where you actually speak to the owner. I rang. A gruff, direct voice answered. I explained. "A whole house, tomorrow morning, urgent, everything into storage." Declan suggested a storage place he worked with, and within minutes I had a unit booked. The first month paid, the whole thing arranged. I cooked dinner that night with an appetite I hadn't had in days, set my alarm early, and laid out my old contractor's jeans and boots, the clothes from before I became a man who funded other people's dreams. I arrived at Marlowe Avenue at 7:45, 15 minutes early, like always. The removal van was already idling, breath rising in the cool morning air. Declan, a solid man in his 50s with the unbothered manner of someone who'd seen 100 family dramas and judged none of them, shook my hand. We went room to room, 3 hours, he reckoned, maybe 4 with the heavy items. And here's where I want you to slow right down with me, because this is the part that matters most. The crew worked with quiet precision, wrapping and labeling. I insisted on helping, despite Declan's worries about insurance. "I'm not that old," I said, and got a grin from one of the younger lads. So I carried boxes, books, electronics, the things I'd bought and half forgotten buying, the expensive corner sofa from last Christmas, the elaborate home office setup, the wardrobe spilling out of 2 fitted closets. In the bedroom I found the wedding albums, and as I turned the pages, something made my throat tighten. I was barely in them. The other family in every shot, and me in maybe 2 photos, always at the edge of the frame, always half cut off. I closed the album and handed it to the crew without a word. Room after room emptied. My back began to ache, and I kept going, powered by something I hadn't felt in years. In what was meant to be a future nursery, I found flat-packed baby furniture, hopefully assembled for grandchildren who hadn't come. And for a single second, doubt crept in. Was I being too cruel? Then I found a stack of her husband's credit card statements, luxury spending, month after month, while they pleaded poverty to me. The doubt evaporated. "You all right, Edwin?" Declan asked, catching my pause. "Just remembering things," I said. "Let's carry on." By 1:45 the house was empty. The room sounded different now after noon. Light falling through bare windows onto bare floors, every footstep echoing. I locked up, kept the keys, and followed the van to the storage unit, where I watched their entire life disappear behind a roller door. I paid Declan in cash with a generous tip. "Hope it works out for you," he said, and he meant it. Driving home, my phone lit with a Facebook alert. Bryony had posted a furious status about people with no respect for family privacy, friends in the comments asking what had happened, her playing the victim flawlessly. I closed the app without replying and rang Rashid. Edwin, good news. He sounded thrilled. Cash offer. A young couple, just relocated for work. Love the area. 210,000. And they want to close immediately. They could be in by the weekend. The number pleased me. Make it happen. Friday morning I signed the papers with careful precision and met the buyers, a bright, hopeful couple in their early 30s named Theo and Maren Castellano, the kind of pair who reminded me of Bryony and her husband before the bitterness set in. We love what you've done with the garden, Maren said during the final walkthrough. I didn't mention it wasn't my garden. The bank transfer landed on my phone. After fees, the profit was enormous. I'd turned a fatherly gift into solid ground beneath my own feet. On Saturday morning I chose to drive past one last time, and the timing, well, you couldn't have scripted it. A removal van in the drive, Theo and Maren directing movers, a baby's cot going through the front door. A young family starting fresh in a house that had seen too much disappointment. I parked across the street, and then a taxi pulled up. Bryony climbed out first, worn from traveling, and went rigid the moment she saw the strangers. Her husband paid the driver, his face sliding from confusion to alarm as he took in the van and the people in what he thought was his driveway. "Excuse me," he called to Maren, who looked up from her flower beds with a friendly, puzzled smile. "What are you doing in our house?" Theo stepped into the doorway holding paperwork. "Your house? I think there's been a misunderstanding." I got out of my car and walked, slow and steady, across the road, reaching into my jacket for an envelope I'd prepared. Bryony saw me, and her face moved from confusion to understanding to pure fury in about 3 seconds flat. "Dad, what is going on? Why are there strangers in our house?" The young couple exchanged the nervous glance of people who've wandered into someone else's storm. Maren still held her trowel like she might need it. "Mate, I don't know who you think you are," the husband said to Theo, his voice rising, "but you need to pack up and get out." Theo held up the deed. "Got it right here. We completed yesterday." "That's impossible. This house is ours." "Maybe we should call the police," Maren said quietly, but with steel underneath it. I stepped forward then, and let my voice carry the calm authority I'd built over decades of running difficult sites. "That won't be necessary." "Dad," Bryony snapped, in that demanding tone I knew so well, the one that always expected me to leap in and fix everything. "Sort this out. Now." I turned first to Theo and Maren, because they were the innocent ones. "I'm so sorry for the confusion. Please, go ahead and settle into your new home." Then I turned to my daughter and her husband, and my voice stayed level and matter-of-fact. "The house was sold because it belonged to me, not to you." The husband's face went a deep, furious red. "What do you mean it belonged to you? If you check the original deed, you'll see it was never transferred into your names. It was always in mine." Bryony's voice rose to a shriek that could have cracked the glass. "You can't sell our home out from under us." "I can absolutely sell my own property," I said evenly, which is exactly what I did. "This is theft. We'll sue you for everything." "With what money?" I asked mildly. "As I recall, your cards were declined in Rome." I held out the envelope. The husband snatched it, tore it open, and read aloud in disbelief a storage unit, a number, a street. "Storage," Bryony repeated, her voice cracking. "You put our whole life in storage. Everything's preserved, carefully and safely. The first month's already paid. Real family," the husband spat, "doesn't do this." I looked at him for a long moment. Real family doesn't cut a father out of a holiday he paid for and call him needy. And that's the line I want you to carry out of this whole story. Because everything turns on it. Bryony switched tactics, her voice melting into the manipulative softness she'd perfected as a little girl. "How could you do something this cruel to your own daughter?" I studied her face, really looked at it. "How could you do what you did to your own father?" Maren came back out, genuine worry on her face. "Is everything okay out here?" "Everything's fine," I assured her with a smile. "I hope you and your husband love your beautiful new home." And I left them there on the pavement with their expensive Italian luggage, looking like lost tourists who'd wandered into the wrong life. "This isn't over, old man," the husband shouted at my back. I got into my car, turned the key, and the classical station picked up exactly where it had left off. Oh, but it was over. 3 months later, a process server appeared at my door with the lawsuit they'd threatened. I signed for it without surprise. By that same afternoon, I was reading the court's decision in the same kitchen chair. Dismissed. A property owner had every legal right to sell his own property. They were liable for their own legal fees. My solicitor rang within the hour, a clean win, no grounds for appeal. The local paper ran a small piece. I filed it all in a folder, gave it a quiet, private label, and got on with my day. This whole thing taught me something I keep coming back to. The mistake most of us make is believing that generosity earns us a place, that if we just give enough, sacrifice enough, pay enough, we'll be loved for it. But love and usefulness are not the same thing, and the people who only value your usefulness will always call your boundaries cruelty the moment you set them. What I understood, standing in that driveway, that nobody else there did, was that saying no to people who only ever say give isn't betrayal. It's the first honest thing you've done in years. So here's what I'd ask you to do today, if any of this landed. Look at where your help is met with gratitude, and where it's simply expected, and notice the difference, because the difference is everything. And here's the question I want you to sit with quietly tonight. If you stopped giving tomorrow, who in your life would still show up? Be honest with yourself. The answer matters more than you think. Now I really want to hear from you. So tell me, comment 1 if you think I did exactly the right thing. Comment 2 if you think I went too far. And comment 3 if you understand why I did it, but you're not sure you could have done the same. There's no wrong answer here. I just want to know where you stand. And tell me where you're watching from, and what time it is there right now, because I love seeing how far these stories travel. Have you ever been the one who gave everything and got treated like a wallet? If you have, share it below. Someone reading needs to know they're not alone in it. What happened to me after, by the way, is the gentlest part. I adopted a golden retriever named Barley from a family moving abroad, and that dog took to me instantly, like he could sense the loneliness and decided to answer it. I bought a small touring caravan, traded in part of what I'd saved, and the two of us set off for all the places I'd always postponed: the coast, the hills, the little towns I'd driven past for decades, and never once stopped in. I packed an old photo album of Bryony as a child, from before the disappointment changed us both. I drove past Marlowe Avenue one last time, and saw Theo and Marin's kids playing in the garden, the house finally full of the happiness it was built for. And one evening, parked at a quiet spot up in the hills with the sky going orange and purple over the valley, Barley resting warm against my leg, I sat in a folding chair and realized that for the first time in years, I was exactly where I belonged. If this story moved you, even a little, do me a small kindness and subscribe. It's just you and me here. And every single person who follows along helps me keep telling these stories about ordinary people who finally choose themselves. I'd love to have you back for the next one. This is a fictional story inspired by real emotional experiences, fully rewritten and reimagined in Manchester to create original content. Any resemblance to real people or events is coincidental.